Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, this week we did flyovers over local Merschman Seeds fields. We chat about what we saw from above. Hear about identifying southern rust, tar spot, and stalk integrity, knowing what you've got in your field so you can have a management plan. Dylan highlights a few Merschman Seeds Enlist E3 Soybean varieties that he is most excited about. And hear Joe's perspective on our hyper early wheat brands Millie 8 and Peyton 2.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman, and welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Dylan and we also have Lynn. And we just want to bring you up to date on some of the things that we noticed this year, or this week, I should say. One of the things that we did this week, we did a few flyovers locally here. And we want to talk just a bit about some of the things we saw from the air. And the big thing that's really on a lot of farmers' minds all over the Midwest is the southern rust and tar spot. And here's a picture that we'll post up here that we saw in Lee County from the air. And if you look at it, if you notice, there's a brown spot right through the middle of this field and then green on both sides. That's where the local farmer left a check. And it's no question about it, we're going to be taking off some yield from the southern rust and from tar spot. And depending upon how you did your fungicide applications, in this case, this farmer is definitely going to pay off by putting his fungicide application. Lynn, you had another comment too.
Yeah, so I think the other thing to look at as we look at choices for next year is hybrid-specific responses to fungicide and some of these diseases as well, because I'll also throw up another picture here. Within the same field, there is two different hybrids within, you can kind of see the split, and both were treated exactly the same. The only difference was the hybrid difference. So as you're evaluating, definitely it's one of those that I think we need to get out there and figure out what's the causation for it dying off early. Is it southern rust? Is it gray leaf, northern? Probably, I'm guessing right now it's going to be tough to see on some of it because the senescence happened so fast in some of the stuff. I mean, they just died like that. But get out there and figure out what it is. See if you have a causal agent that you can manage, but it may be something that you might have to just move that hybrid out of the lineup for next year and move something in that provides a little more defense. Because what kind of not scares me, but because we have management tools like our 2512 is the green spot in this one. These new hybrids are definitely becoming more tolerant to certain diseases. It was before, as we've talked about, where tar spot. If a hybrid was good on tar spot, it might have had some issues with southern rust. It seems like 2512 and this new Corteva material that's coming out, they have a tolerance for both. I'm not saying that they're super susceptible, but they're definitely holding on to their stay green a lot better than some of the old material. So if you're planting an older number, definitely get out in the field right now. Take a look at that, figure out what the cause was, because in this one I'm speculating, but I'm planning on seeing a 20 to 25 bushel difference between just the two different hybrids based on fill period.
Well, that brings us to the next issue that we got to be looking out for, and that is stock integrity. Because of all this disease, basically what happens is many times you either mine the stock or you shut the nutrients off to the stock, depending upon the situation, and then all of a sudden we have down corn. And I know some of the agronomists that I've seen this week are predicting that you need to do the push test, you need to do the squeeze test, and when you squeeze, what, 2 nodes up?
2 nodes up, yeah.
2 nodes up, and if you can squeeze it, that means you basically got a skeleton holding up your corn plant. But a lot of folks are suggesting get after that corn in those fields with the highest levels of disease first. Anything to add to that?
I would just say too, like Lynn, you said, get out and look. Make sure we're getting past like the end rows.
Correct.
We saw it in the air a lot. You could tell where power lines were, houses. It's just a dramatic difference between just the 60 feet on the end. Yep. We get green just like that. So the road doesn't tell you everything.
Correct.
Get deep in there to truly kind of see where stuff is. I don't think corn's moving quite along as fast. Fast is what people might think, just because when you're driving by, it's definitely looking like it should be ready. But you get above in the air, it's pretty green yet. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I know one farmer that we took up looked at the outside edge of his fields and thought, oh boy, it doesn't look good. But then when he got up in the air, he saw the rest of the plant corn was nice and green. So it's just the plane pulling up, and for whatever reason, the outside rows didn't get the coverage of the fungicide.
Yeah, from the stock statement there, I think, yeah, absolutely. And talking to the in-laws about our plan of action for this fall, definitely going to be more aggressive than not related to that. Just because we had west of 27 and some of the stuff that you saw, we had a rain event and a rain period where we had almost 10.5 inches of rain. So during almost right before the critical fill period, we denitrified, lost some sulfur. So from the start of that fill period, that plant was really trying to bring everything that it could into that. So there has to be some stalk integrity issues. Walking in this particular field there alone, obviously I am not built to be traveling perpendicular in between corn rows, so nothing was snapping, but you could definitely see the brittleness and kind of picking your path. But yeah, I think luckily dryer gas isn't it's not super expensive, but it's not cheap. But either picking it up off the ground, there's the argument to and fro on phantom yield loss related to combining at 23% versus 15%, related to kind of keeping some of that I guess dry matter inside of the combine, not having any head shelling. When you look at, I'm going to disagree slightly with you, but when we see the green in the sky, but actually if you go out and look, a lot of those husks, we've got brown husk with green plant, which is perfect because that plant is dying. It's going through senescence the way exactly it wants to, that the fruiting body or the cob is getting mature, but the plant has still got some energy to get through that. But we hand shelled stuff on Tuesday, and just in the I would call it a 3-mile circle, anywhere from 23% to 35%, all kind of dependent on the hybrid going through there, all planted within a 3.5 day window. So for September 4th, we're definitely ahead of the curve. One of your old classmates was actually combining some corn just down the road, and everything was working really good over there for them. So it's a unique position to be this early. Talking to the guys down south, they're kind of used to being started at this point, but they definitely are feeling the wrath of between southern rust, drought, and tar spot. The kind of the big three things that we needed to worry about to kill this high yielding crop definitely is.
Bottom line, keep an eye on your cornfield right now because things are going on, they're going fast. The other thing and when we switched gears to soybeans, the biggest thing that we noticed on the soybeans from up above was the damage that the water did that we had in July. And here's a picture. You can see all the yellow spots. That's where water stood, and didn't denitrify, in essence denitrified, but basically the bacteria that provide the nitrogen to the soybean plant were shut down, and they had to recover. And of course, you're losing energy at that point for that soybean plant. So we're going to see this year on the front side, we see water damage, and now with the dryness that we have right now, we could see dryness damage too. So, it's critical point. There's two critical points in a soybean's life. Number one is emergence, getting a perfect stand or a good stand. Number two is rain during pod fill. We are at rain during pod fill right now, so we desperately need a rain to put the extra bushels on that we need for this year. So, what are we going to see this year? We might see the early beans doing better than the fuller season soybeans. So that's why you plant a package, And Dylan, you got some suggestions about soybeans, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on a few products. I'll start in the group one. I'll go group one and kind of work up. We really like the Neptunes, the 2317s. They can go pretty much anywhere you put them. For the early side, they move really well going east to west. They've got that. They've got a 3A gene for Phytophthora, so that's a plus in kind of your wetter areas. Very good SDS tolerance. They yielded 104.5% over the last 3 years of testing. So that's 4.5% above where our MS Tech data is coming in. So it's a very strong product, kind of in that earlier stage. Then as we move on to the 2-4 or group twos, we really like this new Mohegan that's coming. It'll be a 26 series, so it'll be new for this coming year. That'll be available. It's going to dominate in those high yield environments. So on your best acre, place it there. You're going to be really happy with it. Kind of stay away from your IDC acres. We've got some other beans that we can push that way. Like the neighbor, the Chippewa, it did 108% the past 2 years average wise. So it's a stellar bean in that early group too. So it's a phenomenal product that I think a lot of guys are going to be excited about. We've got plenty of it in seed production for those early groups.
Yeah, that's about as close to a must-have as we can get in a group 2.
Yep.
If that's your maturity and you've got some run in your soil, you better be planting that bean.
Yeah, it's going to fit really well in between like our Chippewa at that 2.2 and then the Osage with the Peking option at that 2.6. Then as we move on into the group 3s, I think I'm most excited about, well, a lot of the group 3s, but I'm going to pick a couple of them. Probably the first one would be the Harrison. It's going to be a new 3.2 for this coming year. You put it kind of all over the place. It's going to be a yielder, kind of similar to the Mohegan, where you put it everywhere. It's going to have much better sun death ratings than like our Lincoln. So if you really like that Lincoln, just bumping up, a slight maturity to that 3.2, I think we'll kind of get away from those sudden death scares, maybe a little bit more, and it can handle all over the board there. And then
on the Harrison, just for viewers, if you look at our book, it actually is shown as a lower SDS score than a Lincoln, but from field notes and our travels plus talking to other people, that's we're just not seeing that thing actually pencil out that way. It definitely has a better tolerance than the Lincoln.
Yeah, yep, and it's done really well. It's yielding just with right with the Lincoln on yield wise, because I know the Lincoln it's a stellar yielder, so it's hard to kind of move on from those. Then as we move on a little bit later, talk about the Monroe 3.7. We've had it was for sale this past growing season, and we've got plenty of supply of it. Broad acre footprint, can go anywhere. We've seen really good sudden death on it. It's just goes anywhere that you can imagine. So with kind of that product portfolio that we have, we can go anywhere and not have any troubles or holes, as I feel like that we have in our lineup.
Yeah, historically for the folks that have bought Merschmans for a while, Monroe's has always kind of fit this big landlord style bean, big long petioles, super green. Probably gave it a little bit more of a marginal play, let the Kennedy run on this, but this particular Monroe does not have that downside when it comes to top end yield potential. It runs just right there with the Kennedy, while still also playing defense on some wouldn't say marginal acre, but definitely some stuff that's got a little bit of stress to it that it plays really, really well in that acre for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing with speaking about soybeans is make sure now you do your scouting and look at your sudden death spots and make sure it's sudden death, not red crown rot. And if you are seeing red crown rot in your fields, and that's primarily right now it's in Illinois, and I understand this week they've identified 8 counties in Missouri now, and the thing is they both look very similar. The big thing is that red crown rot, when it gets going, it can be cut yields 40%, 50%. It can be really bad. And the thing our recommendations are right now is, and MS Tech does have a plot this year to look at varietal differences to see if there's any differences. We also, with our Starting Line Plus, which has Saltro in it, as well as other components that give some help to both soybean cyst nematode and red crown rot with the biologicals. We feel that we have, and then stack that with Peking, then you have a very good defense package. And the experts that we talk to say you've got to control your cyst nematodes first in order to get a leg up, because it's a cumulative thing with stress, and cyst nematodes is where it starts. So if you are seeing red crown rot in your fields and you've identified it as red crown rot, not sudden death, even with sudden death, Peking is source of resistance is a good start. In other words, that's a baseline recommendation. So that would be the Madisons in the Group 3s for us as one of the choices, and it is pretty much a flexible soybean too. And the thing is, with all these Peking lines that we have, they are just starting to come into the realm for yield. In the past, we could have had Peking lines several years ago, but they were 98, 99% yield potential. Now we've got them up to the 103, 104 range, but our very, very best products are still up to what you said, 108 in some cases. So if you need a Peking, you definitely you're not going to take a yield reduction with the Merschman lines, and we're very careful in picking those lines to bring them forward. We want them to yield, and so consequently, make sure you're checking your fields for red crown rot. Right now, we have not noticed anything in Iowa yet. It is spread by the soil and and it is airborne. And so anyhow, that is one of my big things on soybeans, to find out what you have in your field so you know how to fight it. You know, they always say the first thing to solve a problem is you have to identify the problem. And once you have it identified, then you can come up with solutions. And we do have some solutions for both sudden death and for red crown rot. Anything else? I've got a couple more things I'd like to talk about, and you guys can jump in. And on wheat, we haven't talked about wheat today. And one of the things I wanted to mention, if you go to the University of Illinois Yield Trials, and you should know that both the North region and the South region, they do have maturities. And what they did is they take the earliest wheat line there is and they identify it as 0 maturity, and everything else is either later. It can only be later. So consequently, we have the earliest maturing variety in the North, and that is Millie, and we have the earliest maturing variety in the South, and that's Peyton. We classify those both as hyper early lines. The hyper early term is a trademark of Merschman Seeds, and as you can see, we're backing it up with the independent data that we have the earliest wheat lines out there. Why would you want an early wheat line? Particularly in the areas where they do not double crop, because of the fact that wheat doesn't come off early enough, you can double crop. And as in comparison, some of the Pioneer lines are anywhere from 4 to 7 days later than these lines, and that's enough to make a huge difference. Because normally speaking, in the northern areas where you double crop, if you can get your products in June, you're going to have a really good potential for double crop. So, consequently, I just wanted to mention that we can back up our marketing, you might say, by saying we have hyper early wheats, and by the University of Illinois Yield Trials having the 2 earliest lines in the trials, both in the North and South.
Yeah, and to that point, we're early, but we're yielding. We're out yielding some of the later maturities, the mediums. So we're not giving up the yield people might think just because we're early.
Correct.
So we're pushing the yield to the top that we can, and then jumping on that double crop too. So
and Dylan,
there's both sides.
That's a great point to bring up, because if you look at the University Yield Trials, you will not see the hyper earlies and ultra earlies yield well. Why? Because they've been sitting out there ripe for so long, and as wheat, the longer it sits out in the field, the more it degrades in its test weight and its yield potential. Now, we can also take you to our seed growers that grew both of those lines, and they had 100 bushel plus yields. In fact, one was 130 locally here. So all I can tell you is that's a great point to bring up, because a lot of times people will look at it and say, well, these hyper early and ultra early lines don't yield. Well, that's because we had to wait to get harvested. And I've seen it in the University of Illinois Yield Trials where we didn't even get any data because the birds ate all the seed out of the heads because it was the first ripe wheat. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at data on hyper early lines and ultra early lines, that when they're put up against the full season varieties, they will never compete, but they compete when you put them in the field and harvest them on time. The last thing I'd like to bring up is an article that was in the Progressive Farmer September edition, and it was classified as Save on Seed. And they talked about how much seed has gone up, and it definitely has gone up from years past. And one of the things that the article talks about, and I totally agree with when it comes to soybean seed, you can reduce your planting rates. A seed company telling you to reduce your planting rates is suicide in most books. But the reality of it is, if a farmer's not profitable, we have no purpose. We have absolutely no purpose in the long haul. We've got to make sure that you as a farmer are cash flowing and profitable. And this year, with the margins so tight, farmers are going to be looking for ways to cut costs but not yield. And our suggestion is, take a look at your planting rates. And if you're planting 140 to 160,000, you're planting probably too many soybeans. And Lynn, Dylan, what do you think is the right rate for soybeans today?
I mean, if we start the conversation at 120, I don't even blink. Guys that talk about 100, we're still, still no issues there. And when we get down into the 90s, there's just a little bit of, I would say, indigestion, but we definitely want to make sure when we get down into the 90s that our singulation capabilities with soybeans in the planter, that's going to be really important. And then using a quality seed treatment, and then making sure when you're planting that, especially when we get down to the sub 80, 90,000, that soil temperature, soil moisture are adequate. You just don't have that margin of error, I guess, for lack of better terms, when you're planting at 140, 160. And to your point, the guys that are planting 140, 160, if you go out and look at final stands, soybeans self-thin. I mean, why plant, if you want to be at 125,000, I believe with a good set planter and our seed treatment, plant it just like corn. If you want to be at 35,000, plant it 35.5. If you want to be at 125,000, plant it 126,000. We're not really, we don't lose anything, because it's not like our germination is fantastic and our seed quality is top notch. So 120 is kind of where I start the conversation, because I think that's a happy medium between where there's a little bit of grace there if something were to happen from a weather event, but also, you're talking a 30,000 reduction there, and you take that across, if a guy's got 500 acres, we're getting into pretty decent seed savings at that point.
Great points, and right now you can check yourself this fall by going out there and making a harvesting and stop the combine, get out and look between the head and the wheels, and see how many plants per foot that you actually harvested in a few spots, and you will find that it's way less than what you planted, and that's because, like you said, soybeans self-thin. We have farmers that plant 80,000, and we have farmers that plant 160,000, and I can tell you they're both successful. They're both successful. The thing is, when you do plant thicker, you have better weed control, because you get that canopy faster, and that's a positive. You need that. That's one of the main reasons to plant thicker, is for weed control. But the reality of it is, I've seen data from the 80s. In Crops and Soil magazine, we've been using the same article, I think it's from 1982, that says that yield reduction starts at 2.5 beans per foot a row in 30-inch rows. And I don't know any farmer that would leave a stand at 2.5 beans per foot a row. But the reality of it, if you have weed control, 2.5 beans per foot a row will give you a normal yield. Most of the universities are saying 100,000. 100,000 is you'll get a perfect yield. So there's so much data. And the thing is, and we've been preaching this from the 80s, and of course it's just being talked about here in the last 5-10 years about thinner rates. So my suggestion to you is buy a high quality seed like Merschman Seeds with the very, very best seed treatment. And if you are concerned about the cost, just reduce the population until you get to the cost that you want. I have a customer that back in the day when we had 50-pound bags and the seed size varied, he decided what he wanted his seed cost to be per acre, and then he would change the planting rate based on dollars per acre. So he planted dollars per acre, and again, no yield reduction, but he wanted his cost to be the same over every acre. So, and there is some suggestions too, like when you go into corn, that there are certain hybrids that you can take advantage of the flex. And you can take a look at your hybrids there, because not necessarily planting 36,000 on every hybrid is the right thing to do.
Yep.
So as a seed company, we want you to buy more, but the reality of it is we also want you to be profitable. So we're saying one of the ways you can save costs this year without jeopardize your yield is to take a hard look at your populations and the varieties that you're planting, whether they're full bush on soybeans or if they're full flex on corn. Think about that, all that. But those are things that will help you save on seed costs. Anything else to add, you guys?
I would just say to add to the population, as we drop down, the stems are naturally going to get bigger and bigger. So it seems like some years we have some comments from some guys that, well, they're hard to cut or something of that nature. But as we drop population, they're going to branch more. They're just going to put a big stem that you better have a
and you will
sharp
lower that
lower.
potting height too. Like you say when you thin that stand down too.
So that's all I.
No, I think the 2 points that you made that were fantastic, and I think as we look at the evolution of the Enlist lineup, we're getting more into the 2.0, 2.5 plant types, which means that they're going to put off another branch. They naturally want to put off another branch, not so much in the main line. And when we get into that situation, definitely those beans actually want to be spaced out. They don't want to be crowded and be kind of sucked in. So they, you might, in certain cases, depending on your population, you might see a yield increase by lowering your population because you're letting that bean do what it wants to do and put that yield on those. And then the last one that I have is, we look at the 25-12 in our low population trial, 12 bushel per 1,000. Yeah, all day you can plant that at 24, 25. But it's going to be really important to evaluate those hybrids. Talk to your Merschman dealer, your Merschman reps on how to position those. And if you've got the ability to invest in variable rate planting technologies, that's another one that you could take advantage in your more productive soil types within the field. Maybe push that population a little bit.
So I guess in conclusion, pay attention to your corn plants right now. Check their stock integrity to make sure you don't have down corn middle of October when you really need to go. Definitely find out what's the difference out there in the field if you got red crown rot or if you got sudden death, and start a management plan on that. And if you want to save some costs, look at your population, look at your varieties on your seed costs, because at the end of the day, it's all about cash flow and making sure that that acre is productive for you. And we'll do everything we can to help you with recommendations and anything we can do to help you. But the seed treatment is really, really important. There's a lot of differences in seed treatment out there, and nobody has a better one than us. Nobody. And we'll challenge anybody to come in at this table and we'll debate you. And I can guarantee you that we have more multiple modes of action against the key diseases, and we have longer protection than anybody out there right now. So lots of positive things going on at Merschman Seeds. And then ultra early, hyper early wheats. We've got the market cornered on that, and we can back it up with third-party data to say that our wheat lines are early, and like Dylan says, they yield. So with that, we'll get into some corny jokes. I know I've been gone a little bit. I wasn't goofing off. I was just not able to make when they recorded the sessions here. So, but anyhow, some of these are what I call fall jokes. We're a little bit of a chill in the air this week. It's going to warm back up, but this week definitely felt like fall. So I'm going to start with the first one for fall. It's fall when the mosquitoes are wearing flannel shirts, okay? Corn, did you know that corn is like a teenager? Both have ears, but neither listen. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I was wearing, the other night, it was a little bit cool. I was wearing my new fall sweater. It's so fluffy that a farmer tried to shear me, okay? And these are non-fall jokes, but what do you call a guy wearing a hockey mask at the grocery store? What do you call a guy wearing a hockey mask at the grocery store? Freddy Kroeger. Freddy Kroeger. Freddy Krueger? Okay, I got to explain them, and not too good.
Kroger's a grocery store chain. Yeah.
Okay. Last one. What did the poker playing farmer say? What did the poker playing farmer say? Weed 'em and reap. Weed 'em and reap. When you lay down a good hand, okay. Anyhow, we better leave it there. I'm glad you at least smiled, Dylan. Well, thanks for watching today. We got harvest just around the corner. Please be careful. It's very important that when you're going down the road moving that equipment, you can look out behind you because unfortunately not a lot of people watch out. And I did see from one of the other podcasts that I follow that if you're following a combine or a tractor, before you pass them, you are to slow down to their speed and then pass them. That's a safety thing, because if you go by at 60 mile an hour and all of a sudden the farmer turns, it's a dangerous situation. But anyhow, that's the law. You're supposed to slow down and match the speed and then go around. But anyhow, hope your family's safe. We hope they're healthy. We'll see you next week.